Will JMU pitch another second half shutout versus the Marshall Thundering Herd? It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Thanks for tuning in to the Friday edition. More preview of Week 11. Can Texas State finally beat the Cajuns? Coastal Carolina looks to stay hot. We've talked a lot about Southern Miss and Arkansas State, and we'll get into that a little bit as well. Also, please like, subscribe. We've had a really good week of subscribers. We're actually getting very close to 2,700. Still hoping for the 3,000 by the end of the year. Again, that's like 30 subscribers a week. So please help with that. And the more comments you have, the more I'll reply and the more it will grow. So that's the best way to help the podcast grow. Please leave your comments and I will reply. All right, JMU taking on Marshall. I think what we talked about, it was a 13.5 point spread. Still 13.5 points. Let's refresh just to make sure. It is still 13.5. All right, two things about this football game. Obviously, once again, leading into playing JMU, the opposition stumbles. ODU did it, ironically, against, or coincidentally, did it against Marshall, or more, maybe ironically. You tell me. I always get those two things confused. But nonetheless, ODU stumbled against Marshall. Marshall stumbled against Coastal Carolina the week before they're playing JMU. So not quite as big on the line, at least not for Marshall, compared to JMU, is obviously still fighting for a Sun Belt East title. Marshall can get back into it, obviously, with a win over JMU and another JMU loss. Whereas if they didn't lose to Coastal and they beat JMU, then not only are they tied, but due to the tiebreaker beating JMU head-to-head, they'd be in first place in the Sun Belt East. That's not going to be the case. They're going to need some help. That's A. B, I mean, I guess there is a way, but what are the odds that Marshall plays as poorly in the second half against JMU as they did against Coastal Carolina? And here's the thing. They don't have to play that poorly. If they play that poorly, it won't be 44-27. JMU will put a 70 spot on them. All right. If they play that poorly, you hand the ball to JMU 5 extra times, it's going to get ugly fast. And remember, even in that ball game against Coastal Carolina, Marshall was getting the ball back. It was a 10-point game with 9 minutes to go. Plenty of time to get a score, get a stop, and get another score, or at least enough time. All right. And then they didn't really muff the punt. One of the blockers for the ball hit Marshall, one of the blockers, and Coastal Carolina recovers. So, tough spot for everybody involved, but they can't play that poorly, right? They're not going to give the ball to Marshall 5 times. They may turn it over a couple of times, but it's not going to be bada boom, bada bing, but it's not going to spiral out of control. I don't think. It could happen. There's nothing to prevent that from happening except the odds and history, because it's not going to happen. Okay. Now, here's the third thing. Saying they just play regular football. They don't turn the ball over. Can Marshall score against JMU's second half defense? Because whatever JMU is doing in the second half is ridiculous. Now, you want to talk, these aren't top 10 teams. Okay. I can understand that. It all started with Georgia State. Georgia State didn't score anything. Georgia State's not very good. I get it. All right. Then the Cajuns. Cajuns should have taken a 10-point lead. Didn't. Couldn't score in the second half. We saw what the Cajuns offense could do last week against South Alabama, so that's impressive. ODU's got a heck of an offense. They didn't score either. They turned the ball over a bunch. Now, some of that later on was forcing the issue, but nonetheless, they didn't score in the second half either, and either did Texas State. So they're pitching a shutout for the last 4 second halves. And the Cajuns, ODU, and Texas State all have a relatively good offense. The Cajuns probably the least out of that, but Texas State and ODU certainly have explosive offenses. And so, how does JMU approach this ball game with no G5s ranked? All right. And by the way, Memphis seems to have lost their coach. We'll see what happens there. Ryan Silverman, it's out there. He's taking the Arkansas job. So we'll see what happens, because that Tulane Memphis game is enormous. And people are mocking John Summerall because he's doing some interviews. You can only coach the team so much. You got plenty of time to do that. I don't know what else you can do. I guess you're going to be recruiting and breaking down film, but you're going to talk to the media in there somewhere. And John Summerall seems to be out the door going somewhere as well. Who knows? All right. So you got that as a side note. But no G5 teams were ranked in the college football poll. Bob Chesney getting a little bit of national publicity on Barstool, PFT commenter on, is a alum of James Madison. So he's going to give him some love, of course. And I guess he talked about him possibly leaving as well. So I guess we'll worry about that later. But obviously we're expecting some moves come December. There always seem to be. So there's a lot going on here. But my point in this is, does JMU feel like they have to put up some points to get noticed? That's the thing. All right. As much as I'll sit here and defend, JMU does not have a bad loss. Losing to Louisville seems to get better and better, although Miami did not play well against SMU. All right. Louisville is, on the cusp of the playoff. They're, 15th? And the team right ahead of them is 14th, is Virginia, who they lost to. So they seem to be ranked pretty well. And so does JMU have to, put up these huge numbers to get noticed? Because again, they don't have a good win, but they don't have a bad loss. Whereas, Memphis beat USF. I think they beat Arkansas too, to be honest with you. So they have a couple of good wins, but they also have a god-awful loss in UAB. All right. Tulane has a bad loss, not only losing to UTSA, who had a losing record at the time, but got smoked by UTSA. All right. USF's got a couple of losses. One's to Miami, as it turns out. And so we will see. And then the other is to Memphis. So we'll see how this all turns out. But JMU fans, and Sunbelt fans for that fact of the matter, need to be rooting for Tulane to take down Memphis. We'll worry about North Texas later, because I'm not sure they may. They don't have a very tough schedule the remaining part of the way, but maybe they lose in the American Championship game. So we'll see how JMU does it. The problem when trying to press and put up a lot of points because you think you need them, you start doing things like you shouldn't be doing, like going for it on fourth down. That's more than 4th and 4 on the wrong side of the 50, right? Not kicking field goals, not punting it away when you should be going for it. Maybe throwing it long and not a high percentage play when, a little 7-yard slant gets you a first down on 4th and 5, something along those lines. So you can play out of hat, out of your norm, because you're pressing a little bit too much. We'll see. All right. But JMU has been outstanding. I'm going to take JMU. I said I'd take Marshall with the points, but JMU is going to win the football game and see if the Sun Belt can get closer to the college football playoff. Okay. Last chance for the Texas State Bobcats to beat the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns as a member of the Sun Belt. Talk about that right after I tell you about DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP. Who delivered? Powered by DoorDash. Just like you win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. It's going to be from the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns and Lunch Winfield, delivered in a big way. Tough to improve on 10 for 10 in the first half. 14 out of 15 overall. Threw for 2 touchdowns. Ran for another. He was outstanding. When the pressure was on, Lunch Winfield came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, his performance wasn't a fluke. Lunch Winfield is on a streak. And just like Lunch Winfield delivered for the Raging Cajuns, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right. Last chance for Texas State to beat the Cajuns. And truth be told, they probably should have beat them the last 2 years. All right. So 2023, I was there on the field. I think they fumbled. A couple things happened in that ball game. Okay. You want to go back I can go back to the box score. So a couple things happened in that football game before we even got to the end. And it was G.J. Kinney. He's not in his first year of head coaching. He was an incarnate word. But in 2023, he had a shot, and this is risk reward. Okay. Cajuns won that ball game 34-30. I think Zion Chris brought them back in that ball game. TJ Finley was 30 of 40 with 2 touchdowns, 326 yards, and an interception. Okay. But what happened in this ball game was the end of the half. All right. Texas State is leading 20-14. They got a great 13 play, 52 yards. We're eating up the rest of the half. 3 minutes and 39 seconds to go. They went for it on 4th down. They did go for it 4th and 1 from the UL 29 with a minute and a half to go. That's different than what's coming up, okay? Because you're kicking it from the 29. That's still a 46-yard field goal. That's not necessarily a gimme. With 11 seconds left, or maybe 15 seconds left, I guess. With 15 seconds left, at 4th and 3 from the UL 18, they went for it. You're only going to have really one more play before you have to kick a field goal. And now you're at the 18. Now you're kicking like a 35-yard field goal. All right. That should be it. And you should have gone up 23-14. That happened. Then later on, they did have a turnover. Well, they fumbled at the end, actually. They threw TJ Finley threw an interception of 23-21. They traded touchdowns. Cajuns took a 34-30 lead, and late in the ball game, I think TJ Finley fumbled. Was it TJ Finley or was it Ashton Hawkins fumbled on a catch? No. So that's how they could have won that football game. All right, although they needed a touchdown. And last year in San Marcos, fingertip off the defensive lineman's fingernail turns into an interception. I mean, we're not talking an inch. We're talking less than that. All right. I mean, it barely grazed the defensive lineman's finger and ends up in the arms of a Raging Cajun. So it definitely, I'm saying it did. He did hit the football. It did change the trajectory and allowed for the Cajuns to make the play. All right. And yet, Texas State has never beaten the Cajuns. Last chance to do it in the Sun Belt. Cajuns may have found their groove last week. They played South Alabama, played really good offensively for 2.5 quarters, slowed down in the last 3rd and 4th quarter, although they did make a play when they had to at the end. Or actually, they didn't. They made the plays defensively when they had to. They got the ball back and didn't get a first down or couldn't run out the clock. But the defense made a couple of big plays, and South Alabama just couldn't finish. So, and Lunch Winfield played as good a game as you can have. Again, 14 out of 15. Slacker, what happened to the 15th one? Why wasn't that completed? Texas State is coming off of, 4 straight brutal losses. Arkansas State, 31-30, missed an extra point. Arkansas State goes down, scores the game-tying touchdown, kicks the extra point for the win. They lose in overtime to Troy, 48-41. They were up 28-7 in that ball game. They actually, in that game, they missed a field goal to, I think, prevent overtime. In this game, they actually kick a field goal to get to overtime, but lose in double overtime to Marshall 40-37. So these three games could have gone either way. James Madison, they got their butts kicked in the second half. They scored 20 points in the second quarter, and that was it. 28-20 at halftime. Texas State did nothing in the second half, lost 52-20. We'll see if the Cajuns can put the finishing touches on Texas State as they're heading out to the Pac-12, and their basketball team got off to a rough start as well. Yeesh. So I'm going to take the Cajuns in this one, although aren't the Cajuns underdogs? That's shocking. That one is shocking to me. They are underdogs. It opened up at 2.5. Texas State is still favored by 2.5. Wow. That's insane. All right, quickly, we've done a lot on this. We had Charles Huff on. We talked Southern Miss. We had Butch Jones on, talking Arkansas State. I am taking Southern Miss in this ball game. It should be a well ball game. I think it's going to be really close, but I think there's something that's going to win by more than 4.5. Is that what it is? So, but I think it's going to be a well ball game. Could very well come down to turnovers. Does Arkansas State turn it over, as teams have against Southern Miss, or Southern Miss has forced those turnovers, whichever way you like. And maybe more importantly, does Southern Miss, take advantage of those turnovers? And didn't somebody turn the ball over like 5 times against the Pittsburgh Steelers and they scored like 23 points? Wasn't that, when that happens in college, they say, why'd you only score like 23 points? Ask Brian Kelly. But Southern Miss does a good job of capitalizing on those mistakes. So that's what you have to do. I'm going to take Southern Miss, but Arkansas State's had a whale of a season, still can go bowling. And of course, if they beat Southern Miss, they're going to be in charge of the Sun Belt West. But then you do have a natural letdown game. You have the Cajuns coming to town, and whether they beat Texas State or not, you're still going to have a losing record. And all of a sudden, you went up against Troy and you beat them, and you went up against Southern Miss and you beat them. The Cajuns won't be any problem with it whatsoever. Yeesh. That's called a letdown game. All right, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. All right, let's see what happens now. That's only if Arkansas State wins and beats Southern Miss. Although I think Southern Miss is going to get the job done. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk Coastal Carolina, Georgia State. We'll see what other hoop scores we may have missed over the last couple of days. We'll do that right after I tell you about Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead time keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks, like priority shipping and dedicated support, make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, earlier this week, we also had Tim Beck on, Coastal Carolina. He was very generous with his time. I appreciate all. Tim Beck, Charles Huff, and Butch Jones. The time, for the most part, was up to them. Not playing favorites, if you're thinking I am. All right. I went by what they wanted, which was fine by me. Anytime that they can give me, if I fill in no segments, like Charles Huff, that's fine. If it's 2 segments, like with Butch Jones, that's fine too. And Tim Beck, we went 2 segments with him, so I only have to fill in 1 segment. That is absolutely fine. Bob Chesney had bigger fish to fry, if you saw that. I believe that is what is being called big leagued. That's okay. That's fine. It is what it is. All right. You can go on a bigger show. You got to go on a bigger show. I understand. All right. Coastal Carolina has certainly turned their season around in a big way. And they came up with a massive upset, massive drubbing. I don't know about massive upset, massive drubbing of Marshall last week, 44-27. We did mention all of those turnovers. It was a pretty good ball game until then, right? It was 20-17 at half. Marshall takes the opening kickoff, actually goes down for a score. Coastal Carolina comes right back, bada boom, bada bing, and makes it a one-score game again. And then that's where it ended for Marshall. Turnover, and then one more turnover in the fourth quarter. 4 turnovers in the third. All right, so Marshall just did not have it. Some of that was on Coastal Carolina, and again, some of that is on Marshall, obviously. But Coastal's all of a sudden won 3 out of 4 and 4 out of 5, and it all started with that South Alabama game where they were in control from the get-go, and they beat South Alabama badly. Turnovers in that one as well by South Alabama, 38-20. You did hear, and I don't think it was an excuse. I'm not saying, I'm going to say, I don't think Tim Beck was saying, we got beat 47-7 by Old Dominion because we were tired. I think they still would have lost. I don't think he's saying we lost because we were tired and it was a 40-point ball game. Okay. But I do appreciate his honesty. Like, I worked him too hard. You don't hear that very often from coaches. I screwed up. And then he learned, he said, we got time off. We're going to give you some break. Just lift, get off your feet, and we'll get back at it here soon enough. So that's what he did after the Marshall game earlier last week, right? Okay. Or late last week, as it turns out. And so I appreciate that. All right. And so they've come up with a couple of nice wins over the last few games, right? They beat Monroe, which was in a monsoon, 23-8. They came from behind to beat App State, and they came from behind and got all the gifts from Marshall. So each one of those games are actually very different. The best game they probably played was against South Alabama, probably. But they've won 3 in a row and 4 out of 5. So they've turned this around. Can Georgia State compete? All right. It is in Conway. A win gets Coastal Carolina, by the way, to their 3rd bowl game in 3 seasons under Tim Beck. I mean, they did lose to UTSA badly last year, but that was it actually in the Myrtle Beach Bowl, but their quarterbacks had left the program, and they had beaten San Jose State. So they're not in championship form as they were under Jamie Chadwell. I think that's tough to replace because Grayson McCall was a ridiculous college football player. And their defense was really good at that time too. But if he goes to a 3rd bowl game in 3 years, he's done pretty good. and he's had a bunch of quarterbacks this year as well. So interesting to see how this plays out. Again, I'm going to take Coastal Carolina. Georgia State has just not played very well at all. I think they gave Georgia Southern a little bit of a run. Was that last time out? Oh, they lost to South Alabama. That was back and forth, actually. They turned the ball over twice, as it turns out. It was a tie ball game. They turned the ball over. South Alabama takes it in for a touchdown. Georgia State has the ball. They throw an interception in the ball game. They played pretty well against Georgia Southern until the 4th quarter, and they folded, and they lost to App State 41-20. I guess, as good as they could play for defensively against JMU when it was 14-7, but they couldn't muster a tying touchdown. So I'm going to take Coastal Carolina, and I think the points are only 7.5. So we'll go with that. All right. That is the football for week 11. Let's quickly check out some basketball scores. Got some games going on Thursday. We'll get back to those here in a second. I think we told you we did the East Carolina Georgia Southern game from Tuesday, 92-89. That's a heck of a basketball game. To open up the season, East Carolina beats Georgia Southern. Wednesday, App State over Carolina University, 92-46. James Madison over Washington and Lee, 70-56. And Texas State beats Texas A&M San Antonio 114-55. That was on Wednesday. Thursday, I'm not sure we got some finals. We don't. I'm not going to give the scores because they're going to be wrong by the time you see them. But Southern Miss is hosting Tougaloo. All right. Old Dominion taking on Randolph College. And South Alabama, raising their regular season championship banner, is at home against Alcorn State. All right. Those are the three games tonight. We have more action Friday and Saturday. Friday, let's see here. You got Monroe is taking on Ole Miss. Big ball game. Georgia State's at Cincinnati. Interesting. And Texas State is taking on Ron Hunter and Tulane. Marshall and Toledo, another MAC Sunbelt matchup. So anything on Sunday? You do have a few games on Sunday. Southern Miss is at South Carolina. Interesting. All right. So you do have some basketball games throughout. So we'll try and figure out those basketball games as we're going along. I do love that Georgia Southern has a guy named Spud Webb on there. That's with 2 Ds. So I like that. All right. That's about it. That's a good one for this episode. Again, thank you so much for all of the support. Again, we just had a fantastic week. I love it when the coaches actually say yes. And so that's a lot of fun. And I think they like coming on. I don't think they would if they didn't think it was worth their time. They know they're helping me. I'm trying to spread the word of the Sun Belt. I get it. But they know that it's a big help to me when they get it. And the Charles Huff numbers prove that for sure. That's for sure. All right. We will have, obviously, we didn't wait for the end of the App State Georgia Southern ball game. I did a halftime update and, Friday morning recap, but the game is going to end past this old guy's bedtime. So we can't stay up for that. Probably going out Saturday for a little bit. I haven't been out. There's an 80s band coming to town. I'm going to go have some fun. And, we'll recap whatever happened on Sunday. I'll probably still watch on my phone or look at my phone and see what's going on. But I like the 80s bands. They're pretty good. They're coming to Louisville. So I'm going to go out and have a little bit of a good time. All right. Bear with me. All right. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget those audio podcasts. All right. They're on Apple and Spotify are the two most popular. Apple seems to be well out in front of that. Leave comments. Happy to answer them. I think I have to get to the ones that were left on Thursday. I will, probably by the time you're seeing this. And please leave more comments and I will get to them. All right. Please spread the word. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the year. That's going to be a tall task. All right. I'm probably going to fall short, but we got to set goals. So we're going to go with that one. We're almost there. We need 220. It's not impossible. Again, you need about 120 no, I say 120. We need 220. We need about 120 a month. So we're having a good first week here in November. So I do thank you. All right. Please spread the word. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave those comments. All right. You've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Have a great weekend, everybody. Make it a safe one. We'll talk to you again on Monday.